if you're in the mood for some intense ninja action, a little bit of strategy in order to ruthlessly murder all of your opponents, and also a little bit of romance to make things more complicated, then look no further than Basilisk. Picture this: there are 20 ninja with ninja-like superpowers, and they're basically having a team deathmatch where 10 ninja on one side, 10 ninja on another side, and yeah, they're gonna try and kill each other. Plus, there's a whole romance thing here where it's got shades of Romeo and Juliet, where one ninja from one side falls in love with a ninja from the other side, and they want to get married, but their families are kind of trying to ruthlessly murder each other, so it's a little bit more complicated than that. Basilisk is set during Tokugawa era Japan, which is loosely based on history, meaning that some of the places that they go are real, and some of the people that we see in the series are real as well, but for the most part, all of our main characters are just going to be fictional characters. But what happens in the first episode here basically shapes everything for the rest of the series. This is one of the shows where all you really need to watch is episode 1 to know if you're going to like it or not, and chances are you will, because this is actually a very exciting anime. So within the first episode, we see that some of the ninjas from each side are holding a tournament over at the capital before the Shogun, and this is actually where the No Hostilities Pact comes to an end, where they're each given 2 scrolls that are basically containing 20 different names, 10 ninjas from each side, and they're supposed to go to war, and whoever kills all of the ninjas on the other side, or whichever team kills all of the opponent's ninjas, will become the victor. Now, the big problem with this war declaration is that the Iga ninjas are really sneaky, and they manage to steal away the declaration scroll before the Koga ninjas are able to read it and tell everybody that there's a war going on. So for the first few episodes, you have the Iga ninja who are plotting to assassinate with their special powers all of the Koga ninja, while the Koga ninjas still think there's a truce and they're trying to keep the peace. So it's definitely one-sided for the first few episodes. I feel like the story would have been much more gripping if it had featured this gray morality system where characters on each side of the war are fighting for what they consider to be the right thing, and maybe it's something in their past or culturally significant to them that they can't let it go and they've got to keep up this fight. So it's going to be something that I feel would make us care more about these characters, but I feel like there's such a strong divide. It's pretty much like Black and White, where some of the Koga ninjas, for the most part, I would consider to be the good guys, and then you have the Iga ninjas, which I would consider to be evil, because they are the ones that are torturing people, raping people. They're the ones that are stealing the scroll and just trying to do all the sneaking behind the scenes in order to just slaughter all of the Koga ninja when they least expect it. So the Iga ninja are definitely much more evil in comparison to the Koga ninja, of course with the exception of Oboro, but that's because she's a young girl. She wants to have the peace between the two clans, but of course that's not looking too well when you consider that they're all trying to kill each other at this point. So having said that, these characters leave much to be desired, with most of them being just one-dimensional, static characters who are only interesting because some of the powers that they have and because they're at war with each other. But for the most part, it really does lack in terms of characterization here, and this is something that they try and rectify within the second half when the numbers are just dwindling down, where they're actually killing a lot of each other here. We can actually see some of the sad parts of their past, but I feel like the second half of the story is just a little bit too late to try and get us to care about some of these characters, when for the most part in the first half of the series they were either not present, or when they were, it was just a fight and we didn't really get to learn much about who they are to even care about these characters. But of course there are exceptions here, such as with Genosuke and Oboro, but these exceptions are honestly few and far between, and considering that this story is based around 20 ninja, I would have liked to have seen it be just a little bit longer so that we can flesh out more of these characters, so that we can actually care when they get killed off. So setting aside the complaints that I have about the story and the characters, let's talk about the action, because I think that's what everybody wants to hear about when it comes to a show like Basilisk, and I think they did a phenomenal job when it comes to the fights here, because it just makes me feel like before they even made Basilisk, they sat down and thought about what powers to give to what characters, and ways that these powers would be negated by other powers, and how these other powers would be negated by other powers is totally balanced. A good example is you have this character who is a succubus, and she seduces people, bringing them in, and she can touch them, and every point of contact that her skin makes starts sucking the life force out of their body through her skin. Meanwhile, there's a character on the other side whose body is covered in hair, so also, if she touches him, there's nothing that can happen. So it's totally balanced like that, and everybody's power has a way to be balanced, and it really gives you the feeling. And in fact, they do talk about this, is that in the distant history of these ninja clans, they actually developed some of these powers in order to basically negate some of the other powers there, because it's something along the lines of there's not just one person that has these abilities. There can be several people that have these abilities because it's something that they can train and learn. So the powers that these characters have are very creative, with the exception of there's this one guy who seemed like he ate the gum fruit because he could stretch his arms and legs and just stretch his body all around. It kind of reminded me of Luffy if he was a really old man. But basically some of the other powers that we can see, there's this one person who can melt his body and become one with the environment, like he could seep into the floor or into the walls, and you never know if he's listening. He could just reach his arms out of the walls and grab you. There's one person that can turn his hair into these razor blades and just shoot his hair through the walls. And then of course there's the guy who has his body covered in hair. He can control all of the hairs. And then we also see that there are some genjutsus here as well, where the characters can use their eyes. Now, as far as the presentation is concerned, Basilisk is produced by Studio Gonzo, and what a lot of people think of when they think Gonzo is really bad CG and also incredibly inconsistent animation, and Basilisk actually looked really good. Of course, not as good as this manga, but I will get into that in the end of the video here. So I thought that they did a great job in terms of the art and animation. It really created an environment where you really enjoyed the fights for the most part, and this is something that I feel like the majority of people would enjoy the series for. And so I think the action in Basilisk is going to be easily the largest attraction for anybody to come and watch this. But I do feel like the story does drag on at points, especially within the second half of the show, where some of these characters are dying off, which, by the way, they are not afraid to kill any of the characters here, so nobody is safe, but they're killing off these characters and they're giving us some of the backstory, which may be appealing to some, but I feel like I need more time to really grow in these characters, because in the beginning half of the show, we didn't have any characterization for them for the most part. They're just dry, static characters, and I'm not going to care when they get killed off, so I need to have more detail about these characters up front, and this series just didn't offer that. If you feel like you would agree with me on that sense in some other anime that you've seen, I would recommend, especially if you're somebody that's in the manga, I would recommend reading the manga instead, because the manga fixed, or it didn't really fix a lot of the issues that the anime had. It's just that the anime created issues that the manga did not. But the manga, first of all, the story goes by so quickly because it's only 5 volumes long. Secondly, the art style is absolutely beautiful. I actually prefer the art style of the manga over the art style of the anime. Having said that, the anime does look pretty good considering that it does come from Studio Gonzo, and a lot of people think that Gonzo was synonymous with terrible CG and also inconsistent animation, but Basilisk actually does look pretty good, but it's hard to compete with a manga that looks as good as some of the pictures that I'm showing you here. So at the end of the day, Basilisk was truly an enjoyable experience, but I feel like they could have streamlined the story of the anime a little bit, but it's still something that is a fun watch. This is my second time rewatching the anime. I would recommend checking out the anime, or if you prefer manga, then definitely check out the manga. You're probably going to enjoy that much more anyways due to pacing, and also the artwork looks so much darker, and it actually works with a lot of the fights and things that you see in the series. There's also one other thing that I want to recommend. If you like both Basilisk stories, then I would recommend checking out Shinobi Heart Under Blade, which is basically like the live-action movie of Basilisk, even though I don't think it's official or even unofficial, really. It's kind of like a different movie, but the stories are practically identical here, and a lot of the characters have very similar powers, so I would recommend checking out that movie. It's actually pretty fun on its own. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the review, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments section below, and also subscribe if you want to see more reviews from this channel. And also there's the Patreon if you're interested in supporting future videos, and also you can find there new reviews like this one, for example, which will be up a week in advance, and also there are other things such as Discord chats exclusive for Patreon supporters as well. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.